if you are joining us from your podcast, in fact, no, if you're joining us live, this is going to be the icebreaker. It's going to take about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a short break, 5 minute break, where we'll roll. Ollie and I will get a coffee. Then we'll come back and we'll roll straight into the podcast proper. If you're listening to this in your podcast app after the fact, it's been live, then this is the icebreaker episode, a preview, a prequel. It will precede the main podcast with Ollie. So my suggestion is you listen to this and then you roll straight into the podcast proper, and that podcast will automatically pop up as the next episode in your player. Ollie Osborne, Warrior Wellness Movement. Welcome.
Greetings.
Are you ready for these questions? You've had a preview to them, haven't you?
Yeah. Oh, were they the icebreakers? We're about to get hit.
They were the
now?
icebreaker
Oh, right.
questions. Yeah.
I thought that was later. Okay, I better start thinking. Yeah.
I'm just going to drop this camera down. 1 second. I'm going to get in. Give me time to sweat a little bit more in anticipation.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. In no particular order. Questions from the platinum patrons of the podcast. Question number 1, straight in there with a negative one. when have the Royal Marines or the Royal Navy treated you worst?
This was the one I was stumbling with. It must be the same in the paras in any service. So you get seen off. That's what we used to say. Everything you do, if it's not what you want to do, if you get a draft you don't want to do, been seen off. And it's usually because you haven't taken charge of yourself and taken charge of your career. You do get pinged with shit details, of course you do. But I was treated really well, I think, because I ended up in rehab. So my story, as we'll talk about over the next couple of hours, I ended up in rehabilitation. So I was pulled out of service because I was deemed unfit and I was put into full-time rehabilitation. So it's hard to say I was treated badly. That said, I don't want to, can't pinpoint people, but I had some shocking leaders, and just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're a good leader. But before I went into rehab, I actually, I'll tell you what, no, I probably was treated badly. Here we go.
Sling him under the bus.
Yeah, no. It took me to have an absolute meltdown in front of a doctor down at Cold Rose. This is in Cornwall, and I'm talking ex-boot neck, big bloke, having a full-on cry and a meltdown in front of this civvy doctor for her to go, fucking hell, what's happened? For someone to listen, for someone to realise how much pain I was in, physically and mentally. And it took that for them to put me into rehab. They sent me on sick leave and put me into rehabilitation, and that was the end of my service. But, looking at the people who treated me badly, they didn't treat me badly. They were just stupid. They were just poor leaders. They were ignorant to the fact that what was going on around them. And listen, I was no model serviceman. I would have been a shitbag because I was at a low point, and I'll talk about that probably in the next couple of hours. So treated badly. No, I think the military do a really good job. If you take charge of your career, if you take charge of yourself, you're going to get given shit details, shit jobs. Of course you are. You know that. But I don't know. I was treated pretty good.
Good to hear. Due to the mindset you developed in the military, have you ever been too harsh with someone? And do other soldiers have a similar problem?
This is a good one. So doing what I do now as a holistic health and wellness coach, I've had to learn a lot about myself and learn a lot about people and how to speak to people, how to coach people, how to get the best out of people. I've been coaching people all my life. As a PTI, as a strength and conditioning coach, etc. But to answer that question, this is a good one, right? And I've spun this before on my podcast. So I've got children. My little girl's 7, just talking about that, and my boy's 15. And my missus, who's not their mum, we're separated, but my missus, who I'm engaged now, by the way.
Congratulations.
Getting married next year. She hasn't got children. She doesn't want children, but she's unbelievable as a leadership figure and gets a grip of me about how I behave around my children. Now, what I mean by that, to answer that question, during lockdown, that horrible period, and again, I'll talk about this over the next couple of hours, that was a fucking low point for me. This is post-medical discharge.
When did you get out?
Officially 2019.
Okay.
But those last 2 years were in rehab. when we went into lockdown, and again, I'll come on to this, but I was unemployed. I went through an enormous amount of adversity, and stress levels were high. Stress levels were high when it comes to paying the bills, putting food on the table, very no support. And I was out of the military, and the way I used to behave around the kids, my attitude to how patient I was around them was quite frightening. And there was this incident, and I'll never forget it. And my Mrs. Portia, she's called. She'll never forget this. We're getting ready one Saturday morning to go out and just go for a walk, go and get some fresh air with the kids. And I'm at a point of like a real low point. Like I said, I'll come on to that. And the military ethos, the Para-Reg will know this, Royal Marines will know this, maybe not so the rest of the service, but it's that sense of urgency. If I want to do something, I do it. And it's taken me ages to work out why people can't just react like that. What the fuck's wrong with you? Just do it. That was my attitude, and it still is to some extent. So I'm saying to the kids, I'm giving I'm giving them like, right, we're leaving at 0900, like giving a proper brief. And my boy at the time would have been 10, and my little girl would have been like 3 or something. And I'm giving them, we're leaving at 9 o'clock, 09 out the door. So at 10:02, I give a warning order. Now I've got the ability, much like you, I'm sure, to just snap into action, put your rig on, and just go. That's what we do, right? That's what we've done for our careers. Just react to anything. So I can't get my head round, or I couldn't get my head round why it's taking people so long to get ready. Just put your fucking shoes on. And my little boy's 10 and my little girl's 3, and I give them a 10-minute warning, a 2-minute warning, a 1-minute warning. And when they're not out the door, I'm flashing at them. And I remember it, and it hurts me to say this. I was a dick, but I was such a low point. This is 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the lowest I've been. And I'm there shouting at people, my kids, little toddler, why are you not ready? And I'm shouting at my boy, and he was in tears, and my missus just fucking gripped me. I went, stop. So I can't remember what the question was, but I'm sure that answered it. But it was just like being harsh with people. And I've learned as a coach now to be a lot more empathetic. I've still got a harsh streak to me, of course I have, but I call that a sense of urgency. And I'm a doer. I do things, and I want people to have that as well. But yeah, reacting like that around the kids was just, it's embarrassing looking back at it now. But that's where I was.
Time is a critical, mate. Time is a critical, and that's not. I mean, it's not I'd say it's not an uncommon feeling. Definitely, something I've had to deal. I've like definitely had to deal with, and recently my youngest now with me full time, and I've had to go from. I say I've had to go. I've made a decision. We need to be out the door. Obviously, for a school run at a certain time, need to be out the door for multiple reasons. One, to get out of school on time. Two, for me to get to work on time. Right, or to miss the rush hour. I was like, yeah. So I've changed it. So I basically, instead of here's the time and here's when we're leaving, I've said this is the bracket we need to leave. And it's actually the time I'm saying we leave is 15 minutes earlier than we need to. The end of the bracket is the last safe moment. But in her mind, there's a window. Yeah. She's got all this leeway, 15-minute window. It sort of changes the perception in her head, and we never late out the door now, which is good. But still, like, oh no, my god. Yeah. Well, I say we're never late. If we're late by 1 or 2 minutes, in the past, I'd be
1 or 2 minutes. Yeah,
I'd be stewing at that lateness.
Yeah, 1 or 2 minutes is like half hour. It doesn't matter. You're late.
Yeah, you're missing HR.
You're late. That's what I was early today. I was like, I better not be late. Reporting to Para-Reg. I've got to be here.
As a former Royal Marine, you've experienced elite training and intense adversity. In your opinion, what is the biggest misconception people have about resilience, and how does your approach challenge or redefine that narrative?
The biggest misconception I found this is, despite all our amazing dits and our stories and our stories of leadership and that, I post a lot of stuff on social media, and comments that I've had before are, when I talk about people getting in shape, bringing back their health, their wellness, losing weight, getting fit, etc., I get people that put, "Oh, it's okay for you. You're an ex-Royal Marine." What? So that just means I can just no. So it's that misconception of resilience. Just means like that people think like, "Oh, you're military, so you're double R. You'll be all right." Yeah, you'll be all right. Fucking, you wait till I tell you over the next couple of hours about adversity from a mental health point of view. Listen, the military brings you on in so many ways, but don't just think people because they're military they're tough. We can talk about the suicide rates amongst veterans at the moment. Last week a Royal Marine took his life. very publicly on social media, very disturbing. So yeah, the misconception of resilience. Yeah, we're we're all human. No, we're not robots.
Hmm. Hmm. Warrior Wellness is built on a framework that helped you rebuild not just physically but mentally and emotionally. What were the key pillars of that blueprint, and how do you adapt it for the unique challenges faced by veterans and high performers who've lost their edge?
Mm. So we got four pillars of strength. I use three buzzwords. I use structure, purpose, and fulfillment. You've got to have structure in what you're doing. I'm not talking just about health and fitness, just in life in general, in work, in family, and whatever. This is what holistic health is. Structure, you need purpose. What are you doing? Why are you trying to do something? What's the purpose behind it? Why are you doing that? And you need fulfillment. Is it working? Is it making me happy? Is it having a positive impact? So from that, I created four pillars of strength. So physical strength being number one, which may sound obvious, but that's not just physical strength in the gym. It's physical strength as we get older. And my dear old mum lost my dad a few years ago. My dear old mum's 82, and watching her get frail and fragile is heartbreaking. And she won't watch this, so I can say this. And I'm like, you should have put the work in, love. You should have put the work in because you're hanging out now. And I want
Yeah.
to, when I get to 82, be thriving. You're gonna get old. You're eventually gonna die, but at least it's prolonging that. So physical strength in life, in carrying your shopping bags up the stairs, in being functionally fit, playing with your children. This is what physical strength is, not just how much you can bench press. 130, if you're asking. Um, Pillar number two, mental resilience. Just touched on that. Mental resilience. So I'm a firm believer. I'm sure you are, Hugh. Harsh training in the gym, like aggressive workouts that are fucking challenging, build mental resilience as a translation into if you can do something uncomfortable, what's the word, like that you want to do, not made to do it. That has a big correlation into life and mental resilience in the workplace with your children, all the stuff that I've just spoke about. So putting yourself in adversity by your own choice, that's what builds mental resilience for me. Like cold pods, right? I love cold pods, but forget all the science and all the nonsense behind it. If you get into a cold pod in the morning, which I don't do at the moment, don't feel I need to, start the day by doing something you don't want to do that's uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone. So getting out of your comfort zone doesn't have to be running a marathon. It's just go and do something you don't want to do. If you can do something that's a little bit harder, then you can go through the day. Anyway, mental resilience, pillar number two. Pillar number three, nutritional foundation. Should be self-explanatory, but this is eating to perform. And again, not just in the gym. This is performing in life to function properly, to sleep better, to make good decisions. This is what nutritional foundation is. Gut health, we're big on with Warrior Wellness Movement. But nutritional foundation, like we are living in a world of non-sustainable habits that are dangerous because of how we're behaving and with our nutrition. So that's pillar number three. Pillar number four in Warrior Wellness Movement comes from community and support. I don't think anyone can do anything alone. I'm a very selfish man in terms of how I go about my business and what I've done and my past. But you still need help. You still need support. So community and support's massive, whether that comes from coaches, families, partners. I said about my missus making decisions and gripping me. That's support. It's community and support. So you've got to have a tribe around you, a tribe. Surround yourself with people on the same mission as you. And that's where our four pillars come from.
Very good. Very good. Uh, the exposure to hardship. So totally agree. The sort of voluntary exposure. I wrote it down. I was thinking, how do you word that? Because I agree totally. I've spoken about it in the past. Voluntary exposure to hardship. That 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 is what builds resilience. So that when involuntary exposure to hardship happens, you're all over it. You're all over it. I had a point. Well, it wasn't one of the times when I wasn't very well mentally, and I was trying to do a lot to help self help. And one of the things I set myself a goal every day was just do something I don't like doing. Some of the days that was a plank, but it would be like plank for 10 minutes. What? Totally doable, but horrific. Take breaks, but plank for 10 minutes. And another thing is you talk about cold pod. I use the sauna for it. If there's very little else I can do in the day, I haven't got time to go and smash a gym workout to the point I'm just fucked. I'll go in the sauna for 20 minutes because it's discomfort.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like poof, I'm challenging myself.
Yeah.
I'm pressuring myself. It is not nice. I don't care who you are. When you get to that 15-minute point, sometimes a bit sooner, everyone finds it hard, whether they're showing it or not. But the more you do it, the better you can cope with it. It's always hard. I'm never comfortable in the sauna between the 15 and 20 minute mark. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, totally agree. Last question here from the platinum subscribers. Okay, Ollie, you've described reaching a point in midlife where everything, health, performance, and identity seem to unravel. Can you take us to that moment and share what internal shift or realization pushed you to fight back rather than settle into that decline? If you can, so we've got a few minutes left in the icebreaker. We can expand on this during the
Yeah,
podcast. But what was that internal shift? What was the moment of realization?
Yeah, this is a big one. This is a big one.
Okay.
My dad died. My dad died, and I came back from Spain because he lived in Spain, and I couldn't be alone. And I was going to come on to this. I was van driving at the time, and I couldn't be alone in my van. I did one day back out on the road and just couldn't cope. Couldn't cope. Community support, pillar number 4. And I went and found a job in a gym, and I got back into coaching and being around people, and that just triggered me forward. And that was 2022, so that was 3 years ago. What are we now? Yeah, but it was my dad died, and my dad died because he didn't look after himself. He was overweight. He was 76. He had a heart problem. He went in for a heart operation. And as soon as he went in for that operation, I've been very open about this in my social medias. I've talked about it a lot. And I just went, nah, he ain't coming out. Not a chance. And 5 weeks later, in and out of hospital, 3 cardiac arrests, pneumonia, lung failure, kidney failure, me looking after my mum, pushed me to the absolute breaking point. I got back and just went, I do not want my kids to be through what I've just been through. So, yeah, my dear old dad, love him to bits, had an unbelievable relationship with it. He had an unbelievable career. He worked in the CIA. He changed wheels for Jackie Stewart, Formula One racing. He was an airline flight engineer. He had an unbelievable career.
Oh my God.
And he was my best mate. And I just, I don't want my kids to do what I had to do. It was fucking horrendous.
How old was he?
76. But he didn't look after himself in the last 20 years, which drove me on to now do what I do. And that's where the passion comes from. And I was I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what would have happened if he was still here. Would I have created this business? Would I be doing what I'm doing now? It's weird how things just have a.
When did you die?
2022, 25th of June, 2022.
76 is a good innings though for that generation, mate.
It's not, mate.
I suppose you obviously knew. I was going to say you must have known him better. You did know him better. So you must have been able to have a lot more the potential.
The average life expectancy in the UK is something like 80. And it's not just about living for long. It's about longevity and quality of life. I don't want to be sat in a corner pissing myself when I'm whatever age. I spoke about my mum. I say she won't watch this, will be all right. But she's frail and old, and it was heartbreaking. Me and Toby, my brother, went out to see her last week in Spain. It's heartbreaking just watching her waddle around, and that's the cycle of life. But I am a firm believer. If you put the work in now, this is what I do with holistic health and wellness. Now I coach people. You'll live longer and happier and more functional. We're all going to die. I've said that, yeah, but. When you're going to have to go into hospital for an operation and your health fails at some point, because it will throughout your life, you'll have problems. I want to be bomb-proof, where I'm strong physically, mentally. I'm not overweight. My organs aren't packing up. I'm not accepting like, oh, I've got a whatever. Fucking sort yourself out. This is the message that I deliver. This is the harsh side of me coming out now, in it from what I said. Very empathetic, very coachy. But also, there's part of me that goes, fucking get a grip. Let's do this. I just showed you that promo video. It's hard hitting, right? That's basically saying, sort yourself out. You're going to die. Simple as that. And of course, it's a very complicated world we live in with mental health. And I go back to the coachy side of me. I'm not stupid, but yeah, going back to my dad, it was. I don't hold resentment. I speak to my brother about this a lot, but there is part of it. He's actually quite. No, he's not bitter, but he's like he didn't look after himself, and that's why he's not here. He should be here. It's his birthday in a couple of weeks. No, next week. What's the date today?
25th of April.
Today.
No.
Yep, there you go.
Your dad's
I
birthday
just got
today.
goosebumps.
No
I just got
way.
goosebumps.
My God. My God. The chances of
Would
that.
have been my dad's birthday today, so he would have been what, 76, 7, 78, 79? Yeah,
Wow.
should still be here. Anyway, doom and
Right.
gloom, but it's true, mate. I don't mind talking about it, and it's because it's powerful. But that was the turning point. I think that was the question, wasn't it? But it
Good
was
question.
that, yeah.
Let's wrap the icebreaker there. Okay, live stream watchers, viewers, will be back at 10:30 UK. So that's 7 minutes from now. We'll be going straight into the full podcast, and want to jump back onto the subject. We're going to go straight onto the subject of that. Yeah, why the? It's so easy these days to be able to live life longer with illnesses and ailments because medicine's so good, and that's a problem. It's a problem. Anyway, right. If you listen to this on your podcast app, wait for the next episode. It's going to roll straight into the full podcast with Ollie. We're going to get into his career, get into setting up Warrior Wellness, get into what makes the man who he is, apart from the 130 bench press.
I actually added 10 kilos on.
I'm switching it off, mate.